Welcome back, boxing fans, to another late night boxing talk or boxing walk. Lily, are you coming? Let's go. So we just went for the doggies poop break, and I was listening to Teddy Atlas and Paulie Malignaggi talking about the heavyweight division. And they're kind of sort of alluding to the fact that they think the heavyweight division is aging out and not much is going on, and you know, the same old crap we hear consistently from a lot of people who want to always discredit the modern era of boxing, specifically the heavyweight division, to always hype up the past. It's ironic because I saw a lot of people trying not to give Usyk and Fury much credit compared to, you know, Ali and the great fighters from the past. And yeah, you can't really compare modern day fighters to older fighters, just like you couldn't really compare Tyson and Lennox Lewis and Riddick Bowe to Muhammad Ali, George Foreman either. But historically, you still do. The same way you couldn't really compare Muhammad Ali to Joe Louis or Rocky Marciano, but you still did. That's what happens. Obviously, these fighters are never actually going to fight each other, so a lot of what you're giving them credit for is who they beat, what they accomplished, and how they looked during their period of time as the heavyweight champion. And the era they lived in, a lot of times people want to act as if certain eras were better than other eras. And it's ironic because I've been around for a long time, and I consistently hear people criticize eras. After Ali retired and Larry Holmes was the dominant heavyweight champion, people were very critical to the Larry Holmes era, when you had Weaver and Tubbs and other guys, which obviously moved into the Mike Tyson era. And people were even critical of Mike Tyson's era and criticizing the people he was fighting at that time. And so it's not a surprise today that people are equally critical of boxing right now and the champions and the top fighters in this current sort of heavyweight division. We obviously saw a similar thing happen with the whole Klitschko situation, and people were very critical of both Klitschko's and critical of their time as well. So, you know, this is just this kind of ignorant, stupid, you know, what happened before is better than what happens now kind of mentality. And maybe it was, maybe it isn't, right? Like, the reality is, you can look at every sport and you could say something similar, but yet most people wouldn't say LeBron James couldn't play in the era of fucking Wilt Chamberlain and Bill Russell, right? Most people wouldn't say that Mahomes couldn't play in the same era as Roger Staubach and Terry. Oh my God, I can't even remember. Pittsburgh Steelers, Terry Bradshaw era of football. And you know, you could go back to, you know, Shohei Ohtani playing with Reggie Jackson and that era of the Yankees and whatnot. You know, obviously people are always going to compare eras, but it's a fallacy. You can't really do it because those players and those teams are never actually going to play one another. And it's not disrespectful to compare. People do it all the time. Right now in the NBA, people are comparing Anthony Edwards to Michael Jordan, which seems a little ridiculous at this point, even though, yeah, there are some similarities to him and Jordan and Kobe. Similarities. But, you know, as far as making an outright comparison, it might be a little premature at this point to do that. You're putting added pressure on him, and you're going to be that much more critical when he doesn't live up to the expectations that you're falsely putting on him. But, you know, this is not a surprise. Obviously now with social media, everybody and their brother with a YouTube channel, you find a lot of stupid takes regarding sports, and none more so than boxing. With this whole heavyweight situation, we've had a great era of heavyweight boxing at this time. When you think about Wilder, who obviously came in after the two Klitschkos, then of course AJ, Parker, Fury, and everything that's happened in the meantime. Obviously, we would have liked to have a lot of those fights happen a little earlier, but when you think about it, things didn't work out too bad. Wilder ended up fighting Fury 3 times. Usyk ended up facing AJ twice, could potentially face him in a trilogy maybe down the road. We're not sure how things are going to pan out now that the IBF looks as if they're going to be stripping Usyk, which would mean that Anthony Joshua is in prime position to fight the winner of Hrgovic and Dubois for that vacant IBF title, which would mean that you could potentially do a unification fight between AJ and Usyk for undisputed, which, you know, for Usyk might not be as big of an interest since he's already accomplished it and beaten AJ twice. But at the same time, it's probably a career high payday. So why would you necessarily walk away from it? And for AJ, obviously becoming undisputed is something that he's motivated and really wants to do. And this would just open the door for another opportunity to do that. You also, of course, have Usyk and Fury, which after this last weekend's fight, which was a great fight, that was very back and forth, I find it really kind of disrespectful that people are trying to dismiss and downplay Fury and how he performed. I was listening to Ring IQ and some other people like Hatman really acting as if, excuse me, I'm just going to tie my shoe, acting really as if Tyson Fury wasn't in the fight and was lucky if you could give him 5 rounds because they had like 1 swing round. But to say that, I think you're being pretty disrespectful and you're not really looking at the way boxing is scored nowadays. I mean, we see a lot of terrible scores and a lot of terrible judges, and I'm generally somebody that errs on the side of caution. And because of that, obviously, I could see how the fight could have been a draw with Usyk winning based on the extra point from the knockdown. On my card, I didn't have it a draw, but, you know, I want to be as open as possible and think about what the possibilities of the scorecards could be. And true enough, one of the fight cards actually had Fury winning. I didn't see that, and that seemed a little ridiculous to me. I mean, if you give him 6 rounds, I could understand that, but I can't imagine that you would give him any more than that. But a rematch right now at this point would be a great fight. And as I said in a video earlier this week, I think Fury would win in the rematch, which would set up a trilogy fight. I mean, this harkens back to the days of Joe Frazier, Muhammad Ali trilogies, Ken Norton rematches. I mean, nothing about this sounds bad or detrimental to this era of heavyweight boxing. And when you think about the top guys right now in the division, you got a good mix, right? You have obviously Usyk number 1, Fury, who you still probably have to have at number 2, AJ, who obviously is at number 3 at this point. You have, of course, Wilder and Zhang, who are going to be fighting on an upcoming card in Saudi Arabia. The winner of that is definitely in the conversation. You have Hrgovic and Dubois. The winner of that is going to be an IBF world champion. So they're definitely in the conversation as well. And then, of course, you have Joe Parker, who just came off of victories against Zhang and Wilder. And you'd probably have to put at number 4 on your heavyweight ranking list, right? If you're being honest. You have Ajit Kabial, who just beat the great Cuban fighter that people have been hyping up and giving tons of credit for in Frank Sanchez, right? And Kabial destroyed him, broke him down and just, you know, embarrassed him, forcing him to quit. And this is coming off of a great victory against undefeated Makhmudov, the big Russian fighting out of Canada. So Ajit Kabial's in the conversation, you know, another really legitimate fighter. You obviously have Big Baby from the US, young but looks great. Obviously what we want to see is him be tested so that we know really how good he is. And you're not really going to know how that works out until actually he steps in the ring and takes on this high level of opposition. But he looks like he could be a great one. And cross your fingers that he is, because that obviously would be fantastic for American heavyweight boxing, because America needs a heavyweight boxer so that fans stay interested in the heavyweight division, as we saw when the Klitschko's dominated and Americans ignored the division completely. So right there, you easily have a top 10 of heavyweight boxers with a really good mix of young up-and-comers, a good mix of, you know, experienced fighters who are on the cusp of potentially, you know, becoming world champions. And of course, the top guys are the top the big dogs that are controlling the division. And obviously they're fighting one another, and that's exactly what we want, right? Most people would not be surprised if